Good evening. This is Tuesday, July 9th, 2024, and this is our part three orientation discussion class, whatever you want to call it, here on the Kentucky Assembly. And welcome everybody that's here. And this is being recorded to be able to share with those that couldn't make it tonight. So, continuing on with our series that we got from Tennessee, we're borrowing this PowerPoint slide from Tennessee. I've taken edited it to Kentucky's, pretty much taken out Tennessee wherever it said added Kentucky. And so let me screen share. Has anybody got any questions or comments from part one or part two? Okay. Just real quick, I want to put in the chat coming in right now is if you watched Anna's webinar last night, I highly recommend watching that one. It was a good one. Kind of goes along with what we're talking about. And then Anna brought, I beg your pardon, Terry brought to the discussion last night the how to build an assembly is what they're discussing on the coordinator calls right now, each weekend. They're not having a coordinator call for the past 2 weeks because of the holidays and stuff. So, but in the chat here, real quick, I'm going to put that. Y'all be sure and grab that, go through that. Right now, they're on section 8 of the how to build an assembly. And then also, I want to bring everybody's attention to this. It's legal person versus lawful person PDF. It's section 8 of how to build an assembly, and it's very good on explaining who we are now that we've status corrected coming from the land and soil jurisdiction. So it's really good for understanding and research knowledge. So I'll put that in the chat real quick, as fast as my computer will let me. I hope everybody's had a good week or had a good good week so far. Let's see, where did I do that? It's up here. All right, so that PDF is in the chat, coming into the chat. Y'all be sure and check that out. And at the end of this, if there's anybody that doesn't know where to catch Anna's webinars, I'm gonna take everybody through to that website and show you how to keep up to date with the webinars. Come on, post. There it goes. All right. Moving right along. So the two things that everybody that just came on, the two things that I just posted in the chat. The first one is the how to build an assembly mega file. It's going to have WordPress documents as well as PDFs. And then the second thing was the legal person versus lawful person. I thought this was kind of poignant because I've heard it come up on some of the General Assembly calls and, about corporate and incorporated and stuff like that. So hopefully through this orientation class we're doing, we can all gain a better understanding of that as well. So bringing the PowerPoint up. If there's nobody that's got any questions or comments about part one and part two, we'll move right on into part three. Okay. Recording's on. Attendance in chat. If you feel inclined to practice your Zoom, you can put your county and your name. Everybody here is well known on the assembly, so we'll kind of skip through everything. This Bivens declaration, you can see from part one, is a little bit different than our normal Bivens declaration. Decision declaration, whatever you call it, and that is because of the intellectual properties that we're going over. So this is information that was put together by Tennessee, but information handed down to us by the Federation. So it is, it's not secret. We don't have any secrets. But notice right here, no one can attend any of our meetings in secret or in private. That does not mean they cannot attend our meetings. We're open to the general public, our General Assembly meetings, and our open calls without answering to a roll call or without answering or declaring their presence. So we encourage all participation, FBI, U.S. citizens, all of them. We hope that they learn something and are able to see where they've kind of gone off track and course correct, just like we have and status correct. And this is current as of September 23rd. Let's see, let me turn this off. September 3rd, 2023. Okay, Class 1 summary. The Bell Sheriff Safeguard. And again, as we go through this, if you've got a question or comment, don't hesitate to ask. That's what this is for. The Bell Sheriff Safeguard or Belcher Safeguard put in place by the founders allowed, hold on, let me get this out of the way, allowed the assemblies to be called into session after the long slumber. So keep in mind there was 3 ways that we could be called into session. The one that was used by the Federation was the hereditary head of state. The Federation has oversight authority until a state is fully assembled to ensure the protection of all Americans upon the land and soil. Everyone needs to consider why they are part of the assembly and why they corrected their status. Can anybody help me out with this right here? Everyone needs to consider why they are part of the assembly. It's not a loaded question. I've got a point to make. I'm sure we all know it. But my point I want to make is first and foremost, and this was said again by Anna at the very end of the webinar, I think was the most poignant point of the whole webinar is what she said about the last 30 minutes. But this is a rescue mission. And just because we status correct does not mean you have to participate in the assembling process. We encourage it right now at the moment because we need men and women. We need bodies. But as we get further into this, not everybody's going to be a good fit for the assembly. Okay? It's just part of it. So we got land, air, and water jurisdictions. The air is the Pope, municipal and global, universal. Sea is British Crown, territory, international, continental. And land is Americans, nation, states, union under the public law. Part 1. Assembly, this is part 1 of this is actually part 3, I beg your pardon. So for the recording, this is part 3. I think this is the right one. Yeah. American state citizens, ASC status, requirements, and American. So we went over in parts 1 and part 2 the ASC status, the requirements in American state national and requirements, the assembly structure, the 4 pillars, and etiquette during General Assembly meetings and large committees, points of order, and a participation agreement. All stuff. Let's see. The participation agreement is something that we still need to kindly come up with and all agree on. Originally, the power went from the soil, counties, to the land, states. This meant that the counties used the state of the Union as an interface with other nations. This was done to prevent any one county from aligning itself with another nation or states or foreign countries. For example, they didn't want Lincoln County speaking for the whole state. Okay. Right now, we're working in the opposite direction. The state assemblies need to be stood up, and as we repopulate the state assembly, the counties are repopulated. Can anybody got a guess or to know why we are working backwards? Anybody? From best of my understanding, it gives the Federation the clout they need in the international community, and our state courts is what operates in the international. Again, all stuff that was reiterated on the webinar last night. Okay, so our counties are is the highest jurisdiction, but right now we don't have county assembly set up because we've been lied to for so long that we're working backwards. We're starting at the state, getting our state officers set in place, and then as we do that, we populate the county at the same time. Eventually, the county assemblies will meet more than the state assembly when the state is stood up. So there'll be constant business on the counties. Okay, but here, hopefully, in a few years, the state assembly will be able to kind of go out and come back in as needed. An example of that, let's say Lincoln County has an issue with a few men and women on their county getting trespassed or harassed by a corporate, the state corporate, or the CEOs or whatever. Well, I don't exactly know what the let's say we got the three ways that the states could be called to assembly. I'm not exactly sure of on the state what that would mean. Does it mean 4 counties, 5 counties, 6 counties? You see what I'm getting at? So, but the counties can call the states back to session whenever there's a problem arises. But it's like I've always said, first few years the state courts are going to be busy nullifying all the gross laws that we're having to put, or codes and statutes that we're having to put up with. American state citizens or American state national. American state nationals. Americans born within the border of the state acquire the nationality at birth. So, for example, when I get that funny look when people say, "Are you a United States citizen?" and I'll say, "No." The funny look I get is, "Well, what are you?" And I'll tell them I'm a Kentuckian. My nationality is the state you were born on. Naturalized U.S. citizens can declare their status as an American state national. Oops. We remain American state nationals until the age of 21, when we can choose to act as state citizens if there are no dual loyalties or dual citizenships. Everybody knows what that is? Dual loyalties or dual citizenships. Let's see, American state nationals, or let's see, American state citizens or American state nationals, American state citizens. The word citizen always implies an obligation to serve some level or form of government, and it's no expectation here. When we are old enough to accept the responsibility and understand the obligations involved, we become eligible to act as citizens of our state of the union. Okay, so that means foregoing your sovereignty as a national for the time that you choose to serve to be able to help make decisions in the international community for the state. Okay. Keep on the state at the state level and jurisdiction. State nationals and state citizens can um, express their intent in General Assembly meetings. I don't use the word vote because we don't vote, we elect. Express an intent, or it would be like if we move the floor to something. So any state national, any state citizen will be able to voice their yay or nay opinion, or they're abstained. Okay. But when we get into the international jurisdiction, only state citizens are allowed to participate. State citizens must be free to make decisions impacting their state and its international relations with other nation states with a clear mind and open conscience, unaffected by mixed loyalties to any other master, dual loyalties, and dual citizenships. State citizens voluntarily occupy an office of personhood in order to serve the interest of international jurisdiction of their state of the union. Any questions or comments on that? Make sense to everybody? And again, I can't see chat and I can't see hands, so assembly structure, the 4 pillars. Foundational understanding. We are not building a corporation, so corporate business structures do not apply here. We are committee-based, everyone working together in self-governance for the betterment of their community. We work by committees to achieve this harmony. So our system is a system of prosperity and harmony. Each state assembly consists of one body politic composed of all declared state nationals and state citizens living within the boundaries of each state. Anyone who qualifies by birthright or by legal naturalization process and who lives in a state on a permanent basis, or two, declares and records their political status as a state national or state citizen, so long as they remain in honor. Four pillars again. Each state assembly is organized to perform four functions. The General Assembly. Now, I've recently said if you take this model and you apply it to yourself in a self-governing form, you're covering all bases. So we'll go through them. This is for the assembly, and I like to use it for my individual self as well. Your General Assembly is a general understanding, general knowledge of what's going on in the business that we're trying to create, because this is a business that we're trying to create, and in the government that comes along with that. The General Assembly provides a public discussion and decision forum for intrastate business and acts of committees of the whole to decide issues of general interest, conducts the elections, and provides oversight for all assembly functions. Okay? So taking that to your personal life, you just have a general understanding of everything that surrounds you. The International Business Assembly, when you status correct, you've got to conduct business a little bit different than you would if you were still a United States citizen. International Business Assembly, which is composed entirely of state citizens, conducts the international business of the assembly. See the federal record. The General Assembly, at the individual level, will be getting that good administrative process down pat, where if you are trespassed, you can choose to contract or you can return service. The General Assembly provides on the state assembly. The General Assembly provides the court services and oversees the grand jury, trial juries, officers, and functions of our American courts. It's been said that our county courts are the Supreme Courts. For instance, the example that Anna talked about last night was down in Texas on the border. If those counties along the border would assemble and hold court, then they could, by Anna, stop all the mess that's going on, because they are the superior jurisdiction on that county. And then, of course, your assembly militia, taking it to the individual basis, it's all your prepping. The Assembly Militia Community Response Team is focused on promoting public safety within the boundaries of their county and their state, and is well regulated, and is the well-regulated militia guaranteed to each state and the county for its internal security. I would also add to this is a perfect opportunity for those men and women that were U.S. citizens and have status corrected, that have done that soul searching to say if they're like a doctor or a nurse, or, they're closing their eyes at night and they just cannot deal with what they're having to do. In my opinion, the militia, the assembly militia, is the perfect place for them, because you can reach out to other men and women, maybe offer your services to them, the people that need it, so you can kind of start your own little business, and we can all start the American business and operate and leave the U.S. corporation to do what it's going to do. Or there's opportunity for education. Not the indoctrination education that we all go through when we learn the trades and the employment that we're all into, but just little tricks of the trades and stuff that we could use as Americans. Questions, comments? Is there anybody that would like to read this one? I hear crickets.
I can read it.
Thank you.
General Assembly meetings are public meetings. If there are any private or sensitive interstate business, the agenda is split and the public portion is closed so that only state nationals and state citizens participate. Right now, we don't have any private business. Regular assembly meetings are scheduled and posted in advance. We currently meet monthly.
So that bullet point number 2, where our General Assembly meetings are open to all non-status corrected and status corrected men and women. What we're doing right now in Kentucky is we're making it known at the beginning of the call that if there's any business issues that come up, the only people that can express intent or yay or nay or whatever or elect are those that are status corrected, state nationals and state citizens at the state level at the General Assembly. Questions, comments? You care to do this one again, Belinda?
Sure. Points of order, rules of conduct for the Kentucky Assembly have been adopted and are discussed in the etiquette part of the presentation. The General Assembly is a committee of the whole. All other committees are subcommittees. All subcommittees are formed in the General Assembly where everyone has a chance to join the committee. Right now, the Federation coordinators conduct General Assembly meetings.
All right, so a couple points on bullet point 2. The General Assembly is a committee of the whole. All the committees are subcommittees. Okay. All subcommittees are formed in the General Assembly where everyone has a chance to join a committee, and that's always encouraged. You don't have to lead the committee right off the bat. It's been recommended to go through our committee structure, mark off all the ones that you know you do not want to have anything to do with. The ones of 2 or 3 that you are interested in, just go sit on them, be a fly on the wall. And if it piques your interest, then, naturally start communicating and start participating. And hopefully we gain committee chairs, recorders, and treasurers from this as well, because that's the check marks that we have to have in order to say, hey, we do have this committee. Okay. That's what's recommended. And then right now, the Federation coordinators conduct the General Assembly meetings. Can anybody tell me why it says the Federation coordinators? Why is it expressed like that?
Because the Federation oversees us until we get our state completely stood up.
That's correct. But when it says, anybody else? When it says the Federation coordinators, that means that all coordinators, work directly for the Federation. Okay. So they're Kentuckians that have said, hey, I want to coordinate. And so they're getting directive right straight from the Federation, and they're bringing it back to the Assembly so the people can take that and put it into action and assemble. So if you step up for a coordinator position, you work directly for the Federation. Okay. Me as a state marshal at arms and a state citizen, I work for the people. There's a difference. Okay. Any questions or comments? But that is right. Until we get approved, like Ohio's trying to do, we still take our directives from the Federation. And then once we get approval, and the script kind of flips a little bit. Any more comments or questions? General Assembly recommended committees. General Education Committee. I don't think these are any precedented order. I think they are put on here as your most needed as we're assembling. So General Education Committee produces educational materials and programs for the general membership and public. All right. New Member Orientation Committee stood up more. It's not stood up, but we knew more participants needed. That's why doing this, hopefully somebody can take this information and streamline it and start doing it repetitiously. Like, for instance, Ohio does an 8-week training. At the end of the 8 weeks, they start back at week 1. Anybody can join week 3 to week 8 and then come back and do week 1 and 2. Okay, you're not going to miss out on anything. What they have done is they take topics and they make an orientation class out of it. So they've sat down as an orientation committee, and they pick the top 8 topics that they want people to all be on the same page on, and they go through that week by week. And we have been invited to that. I don't know. I think I just shared the Marshall at Arms meeting with our vetted officers and stuff. But if you're not vetted and you would like to see that review, just email me and I'll share it with you. It's no big deal. Events committee. It's not stood up, but we do need more participants. Plans and executes events, meetings, and elections set up. So they would kind of work hand in hand with the General Assembly and the General Assembly. Records committee assists and oversees recording secretaries. It's kind of stood up. We just haven't called it an official committee. But we do have 2 recording secretaries that we do have a pretty good system in place set up by the prior recording secretary. Treasury committee. We kind of have a treasurer, but we don't really have a committee. So just for be able to put 2 and 2 together, a treasury committee would, in my opinion, would be the treasurers from each committee and our state treasurer, which would be the chairman or chairwoman. Or anybody that has banking experience in their background and doesn't really want to take that title as a treasurer on any committee or state, they're more than welcome to sit on that committee and put their and participate and put their knowledge that they've gained. Let's say they've got 30 years in banking and they're just so tired of it they don't want to do it. They just want to give knowledge. Perfectly fine. Perfectly fine. General Assembly recommended committees again. Oversight Committee provides general oversight and forum for complaints. Ombudsman Committee, in addition to outreach and communications, until we need this to stand as a separate committee. So Tennessee was making it all combined into the outreach and communications. It provides communications, outreach, and conflict resolution and arbitration services. Arbitration. That's a big word in our system because we want to nip it in the bud before it has to go to court. We're supposed to live in harmony. So arbitration, if we can talk it out and we come to an agreement, that's less work for our courts. So we always are seeking peaceful remedy, and arbitration is a big key in that. Vetting committee, it is stood up, approves and reviews candidate eligibility for certain positions. We vet for the position. We do not vet the man or woman stepping up for that position. Okay. So that means we check, make sure that their status corrected properly, that they know that if they're stepping up for a treasurer, they don't have any criminal record that has to do with anything money wise or like that. And then it's just a simple, if there is something that pops up, it's a simple conversation. It's not an automatic hearsay, pointing fingers. No. Everybody deserves to have their side of the story known. Okay. So keep in mind, if you're stepping up, we are public positions. So general elections and quorum committees handles notices and candidate publications, sets dates, promotes participation in elections, provides ballots, poll watchers, and ballot security. This is something that we'll need in order to be able to be stood up. Because right now, taking my position, for instance, as State Marshal at Arms, The process it went through was I was on a General Assembly call. I expressed my intent. The election was set up uh, as best we could. I think it was an email election, and also people showed up on a General Assembly call to cast their intent or their election. But as we get assembled, then there's always an opportunity for another man or woman to put their hat in the ring as a marshal at arms. That means we have more candidates when it comes to the election part of it, and the best candidate will win, being elected by the people. Office of Marshal at Arms is stood up, ensures safety and decorum at all meetings and events, caretakes the flag, works with the elections committees to secure ballots. Any questions or comments on that one? International Business Standing Committee. I think it says, does that say committee? Yep, assembly. Business assembly meetings are relatively rare events at first, but become increasingly important going forward, especially as the state of Kentucky, unincorporated, is established. We have had a total of 4 international roll call votes. Can anybody tell me what those are?
We voted on laws
Right,
for the road calls.
right. We just recently did, and this within the past year, did the 2 public laws. I can't remember the numbers of them, but and then again back in 2020, at the outbreak of the scamdemic, they took another roll call vote on public laws as well. 2 of them. That's total of 4. These meetings are open to state citizens who are the only ones with standing to vote on international interstate business under considerations. This committee is composed of state citizens and is responsible for conducting international business for the assembly, including setting up the state of Kentucky organization needed to complete reconstruction of the Confederation and Federal Republic. So, can somebody give me an example of an international business issue that would be handled by this committee or this pillar? Okay, one I've heard is, let's say that the crap hits the fan and water becomes scarce. And Tennessee has a watershed set up. Everybody knows what a watershed is. Tennessee has a watershed or has water, and Kentucky don't. Well, the International Business Assembly would reach out to Tennessee and say, "Hey, we've got tobacco. Would you like to trade for water?" Or so, that's just an example. Okay. Anybody else can think of an example you want to throw out?
Hey Justin, this is Todd on Grant. This
Yeah,
would be
buddy.
like where you have the bridge going from Kentucky into Ohio, and if there was an issue there, then they would discuss because crossing the body of water between the 2 states, how they would go forward, say for a repair or something like that.
Another good example. Yep. Anybody else? International Business Assembly recommended committees. International Security and Education Committee. Notice the theme of education. Why would this education word come up in so much of our stuff? You don't have to answer. I'm just asking that for y'all to ponder. Reads and assesses international and global new trends, keeps up with security issues and concerns. This committee is briefed on international issues impacting the state of the Union, may make presentations and recommendations to the General Assembly. How come it doesn't say that they can just make decisions? How come it says may make presentations and recommendations to the General Assembly?
May I, Justin, on Todd on Grant?
Sure, thank you.
Because it'd be up to the General Assembly to make that decision, not the committee.
Because what's in the General Assembly?
They would be the state citizen, well, everybody's corrected status, but state
There you
citizens.
go. Yep, it's the people.
Yeah.
It's the government for and by the people, we the people. So the committees are responsible for coming up with the ideas and stuff putting out by the General Assembly. And the committees take it back, they work on it. They bring a presentation, a recommendation to the General Assembly. If it's needed to be elected right then or have a roll call vote then it happens right then. If there's not a 2/3 majority or 2/3, I guess majority is the right word, then it automatically gets sent out back down to the committee. There's to be not really any discussion at the General Assembly meeting. It's just, okay, it didn't pass. Y'all take it back and work on it and bring it to us the next General Assembly meeting. Right now, as we're spread out month to month, it gives you ample time to do that. But as business starts picking up, we may have to start doing a bi-weekly General Assembly meeting. It's up to us to decide that. We decide that. You, everybody on this call. Congressional committee. This was way out there. Vetting of candidates for congressional offices in the Continental Congress. And once the reconstruction is complete, we also vet candidates for the United States Congressional Delegation. We'll receive let's see, let me read that again. Vetting of candidates for congressional offices in the Continental Congress, and once the reconstruction is complete, we'll also vet candidates for the United States Congressional Delegation. We'll receive nominations, publish election notices, conduct elections for these offices, and provide ballots and security announces the election results. All right. Where's our capital at?
Philadelphia.
Awesome. And I don't know if you all know this or not, but Anna has a son that has been at that office. I can't say how many years because I'd be wrong, be misquoting, but I'm pretty sure she has a member of her family with his foot in the door as a status corrected American. That way they cannot say, there's nobody here, we're shutting the doors. That's the best of my understanding. I may have that wrong. If there's anybody here that knows more about that and can course correct me, then please do. So Anna is a family deal, but it is also mentioned last night, most of the members of the Federation are up in their 80s. She's one of the youngest, and she is just a fiduciary. She's pretty much the chairman, the spokesman. Any other comments, questions? Moving into the General Assembly Standing Committee. The General Assembly meetings are organized by the active ASCs and ASN members of the General Assembly, all of whom are qualified jurors able to serve on both grand jury, and trial juries, or as officers of the court. What's the difference between a juror and an officer? Anybody?
May I, Justin? Todd on
Sure.
Grant. So the officers would conduct the actual court proceeding or help with that, whereas the jurors would be the ones who would decide what happens within the court case.
Nailed it. We as the juries are in contrast to the C courts, the C jurisdiction, maritime jurisdiction courts. The judges run the courts. Our courts, our jurors run our courts. All the officers are there to conduct business and make sure that it's done according to what's been put out by the Federation and those before them. So awesome. Any more comments or questions about that? Can anybody tell me an officer position besides a justice?
The clerk.
Perfect. Anybody else?
Recorder.
The sheriff?
Sheriff? I've heard it described as a small baseball team that can run our state courts. Again, that which are acting international. So they would be taking on Google, Facebook, Yahoo, or not Yahoo, Amazon, those type things. Please be sure to indicate if you would be willing to help with any of our drill committee roles in the LRO. So that option is available. And I will say, as an officer of the assembly, the state marshal at arms, we do a crappy job of keeping up with that. I've known in the past men and women that have done this, and they waited for 2 weeks waiting for a response, but it was a lack of knowledge on my part to be able to watch for that. And because this is where outside of the General Assembly, you can go and express your willingness to serve. And if we was doing our jobs as officers, we'd be monitoring that. And once we seen you pop that up, we'd be reaching out to you and saying, "Hey, what can we do? Let's work together. What did you have in mind?" That type stuff. So this is a good tool on the LRO that we maybe think about starting to utilize a little bit more, because you can see all the different positions: coordinator, county director, marshal at arms, and then also your abilities. General Assembly recommended committees. Court venue committees seeks accommodations for the court to hold session, negotiates use of our public buildings for this purpose, serves notice that our public courts are restored, invokes ex parte Milligan, 2 U.S. 71. Law Education Committee evaluates educational opportunities to familiarize members of the assembly about our public law and its administration, past and present. So one thing our General Assembly's going over right now is the common law. So it's recommended that if you're going to participate in the General Assembly, that you familiarize yourself with the law that we go by, which is American common law. And that book is on Amazon. It's the it's something about it's by Brent Allen Winters. The Excellence of Common Law, I think is the name of it. And if I get time, I'll share the YouTube channel in the chat where I always read that on video. Let's see, jury pool committee develops pools of competent and eligible jurors to serve on both trial juries and grand juries, administers selection of jurors, reimbursement of expenses, and other issues related to maintaining and caring for jurors. Court Oversight Committee provides necessary oversight for the public court system and its operations to ensure fairness and proper procedures. Investigates claims of malfeasance, incompetence, or bias. So, not being assumptive or assuming too much, but we have an oversight committee for the General Assembly, maybe one for the General Assembly. Not so much for militia, I don't think, but it all has to do with checks and balances. So though we status correct and we gain general jurisdiction, superior general jurisdiction in all jurisdictions, it does not mean that we don't have any rules whatsoever. So we do have checks and balances put in place. General Assembly recommended committees continued. Sheriff's Committee works with the county sheriff to evaluate and bring forward the concerns of the Assembly County Sheriffs to better assist them in the performance of their duties. Can anybody tell me the role of a sheriff within the General Assembly? Would they be the one doing the investigation? If there needed investigation? or would he be the one at the very end of the line once the verdict is read or decided upon? Would he be the one carrying it out?
He's the one
With
with the final decision.
Right, he's the one that does the enforcement. Coroner's office. The coroner's office committee takes on the oversight functions for the coroner's office, investigates complaints, and works with the coroner and his staff to improve their service and capabilities, record keeping, and end of life services. Litigation committee. More participants needed. Works with the assembly members who have active litigation concerns to assist them with asserting their position with respect to the foreign courts and educating them to avoid entrapment. All right, militia assembly. All able-bodied members of the assembly 21 years of age and above are expected to actively support the militia in one way or another, either as active militia or serving in supply, communications, or administrative positions. So that means that you 8 to 80, or beg your pardon, 21 to 80. You have a position. There's something you can do within our militia. Militia can be referred to as community response team to those outside of the assembly. Our assembly militia will soon maintain a schedule for training, conduct exercises, and business unique to the militia. And that is actually what's going on within our militia assembly pillars. Comments or questions?
May I, Justin? This is Todd on Grant.
Cool. Yeah.
So I had the opportunity Sunday. We have a sheriff's deputy who does security for our church, and I was talking to him how I would like to reach out to the Grant County Sheriff's Department, and basically I didn't get to go into the details, but I told him I'd like to sit down, and we were discussing some of the issues like the county reeves and the history behind, and he knew all of that. We were talking about the coroner and their power and the different things, just how that we as the militia, and I didn't even mention the word militia at the time, but just said that I want to work with the sheriff's department, like if there's natural disasters, that type of thing, emergencies, how we would, work to help the community. And he really seemed up for that. So I'm looking forward to getting with him and the actual sheriff and working on that part here in Grant. And then hopefully we can do that across the state. I yield.
Yep. Thank you for that update. And just keep in mind, that's the motto. We're American State Nationals. We help keep the peace and uphold the public law. In any LEO and or sheriff's deputy or sheriff, that's music to their ears. Help uphold the public law, though they don't really know what the public law is, because they're getting all their orders from county's attorneys and everybody that's subordinate to them. They don't realize it. See, so it's up to us to do just like you're doing as an outreach. And I'll just throw this in. I know not too much, but I know that the PKTF liaison, that office in Louisville that Joe Hayes discusses, that's available to us to be able, when we do reach out to these corporate entities, to have a safe meeting space, to have an office availability. Now, don't quote me on this, but this is on the militia calls, or not militia calls, but martial arms calls. It's talked and discussed that $250 a month, you can have an office in a big office building, rented, and then you have a time to where you can rent that space out. Let's say you have a meeting with the sheriff of Grant County, and you want to come to a safe space, a professional space to come and meet with them. That's what this is for, to be able to set up. And the liaison is not really participating in the assembly or the PKTF. They're just a liaison. They know the lingo. They're peaceable. They can speak this just verbatim, just right off the cuff and explain it to where they can understand it. All right. So from what I'm gathering, that's what the liaison is set up for us to be able to start that line of communication with those in the corporate community, not corporate community, that's not, but those in the de facto that are interested or want to work with us to help assemble. There's some that's going to want to stay on the other side of the fence, and there's some that's going to, have that light come on just like we all have. And status correct. But we've got to be able to work with the other side. We can't just be butting heads all the time. Once we make them understand, and I say understand for a purpose, because they are our employees. Okay. Once we make them understand their role, they either status correct and stop with the unlawful pirate, the inland piracy, or they course correct and start doing their job according to what our forefathers had laid out. Not us. We're just kind of restoring to that and then reconstructing after that. So any other questions or comments about that? Not to try and get off subject here, but that is the goal of the PKTF liaison. One of the goals, I'll say. It's multifaceted. So thanks for that update, Todd. That's exciting. And if I can be of assistance in that, let me know.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Yep. Continue with the militia assembly. And again, just like the other pillars, please be sure to indicate if you would be willing to help with the militia committee and the LRO. So I'll put a little caveat in here. Where Tom Gluck was nominated and he accepted the nomination and was approved by the General Assembly to go from General Assembly coordinator to chairman. He could, if he wanted to, get credentials to the LRO to where he could check this. Or you, Todd, if you want to go that route and you want to declare as a state citizens, if you do all your ties and stuff like that, break ties like we're supposed to, then you can have access to this. And this is not only does it have access to this, but you could have access to emails for outreach. Let's say you find a lot of people that's willing to do militia. You could print out a spreadsheet, an Excel spreadsheet, and start your database and start doing your outreach to those men and women, trying to get them into the assembly. Because keep in mind, just because there's 7 of us on this call, don't mean that's all it's status corrected in Kentucky. So not only is our outreach to the de facto United States citizens, I think that's secondary. Most of our outreach, in my opinion, should be focused on status corrected men and women because they did it for a reason, just like we all did. Any more comments or questions?
Hey, Justin, I have one.
Mm-hmm.
So, since like right now where I don't have access, where I'm not chairman, and say you had access where it's got the places where people can check, is there any way that someone could update us until we got access? Who would potentially be interested in certain areas, whether it was juror, justice, militia, whatever?
There is a way. And in all honesty to your question, it would be between you and that individual that had access to work that out because it is a little bit of work involved. They would have to go in, search for that person. It would have to be an individual search. So I would have to go look you up, Todd, right? And then I would have to go from who, see the different tabs up here, who, membership, contact, documents, and participate. I would have to look you up individually and then go look and see what you're willing to do. So there's a little bit of legwork involved in that, but if somebody's willing to help you do that, of course, that can be done. But you're a vetted you're a vetted member of the assembly right now. I might have misspoke when I said ASCs are the only ones capable of having access to this. You being a vetted officer of the assembly, if I could request access for you to the people that run the LRO if you want access.
Well, that would may be good. I mean, I'm going to work to get to like Tom did. I know I still got to do the marriage part, and then I'm still working on some of the business part to make sure everything's cut there. But everything else, as far as I'm aware of, has been done.
Yep, good deal.
All right.
We can talk about that offline. If you want access, I think you deserve access because it would help you achieve your mission better, right? You can start doing outreach now that you got business cards. Those are mainly for your day-to-day basis, meeting people out in your community, right? 2 to 5 minute conversation, maybe a 10-minute conversation if you felt led to give them that much time. But this is all status corrected people that you have access to. State you can do a search on state, national, state citizens, by county, by last name. So it's a really good system the LRO has created as a tool for us to be able to communicate. And not to go off too far in the weeds from this, but this contact 123, it's set up to where we can enter people that are willing to be that are in process. We can set up the contact 123 to do. Okay, some people don't want emails every day. It's too much for them, especially new to the information. So we can set it up weekly. Give them this information on status correction. Next week, give them this information on whatever else that the assembly or that committee decides to do. Right? So it's a good resource, but keep in mind, it is one resource among many that we can use for the public record. All right. Any more questions or comments about the LRO or the militia assembly? While we're on the LRO, I would express great urgency in everybody. If you haven't got a credential card, get your credential card because now they're issuing the new version with your signature block and an expiration date. Because it's for identification purposes only. Okay, and this was said on the webinar last night. And again, I encourage you to go to look for it. It's for identification purposes only so that we cannot be assumed to be U.S. citizens or anything else, federal citizen, whatever. And it meets the international standards for an ID. But that's just, again, one tool that they're coming up with. The Global Family Bank, their QRC codes is another tool that everybody's going to be recognized by because it can't be duplicated. But I'm kind of rambling, so I apologize.
Hey,
But,
Justin, may I?
yeah.
So, do we need the new card if we don't have the one with the signature?
Yeah. If you have bought an old ID card, it sucks. But the way this thing has always been, that as we learn, we have to course correct. And so it's recommended to go, if you don't have a state ID, state credential card, to get you one because it's going to be the new format. If you've had one for like myself for a couple years now, I've got to go back and reorder one because it's in a new format. And then on the signature line, it's always recommended a passport, driver's license, state credential card, autograph with your byline, because that is what, it's not 5-star, 3-star, 2-star, 4-star. It's how you autograph your passport is what matters, is what jurisdiction it puts you in. All right. The militia assembly recommended committees. The membership committee evaluates candidates and vets them for specific jobs within the assembly militia, seeks to encourage participation in militia. That's where the outreach and the LRO list would come in. Understanding of the militia's role and support of the militia's functions. A provisions committee acts as quartermaster for the militia. Is there anybody that does not understand the word quartermaster? It's a military term.
Scout term too.
Right. Yeah,
Take
it's
care of all the supplies.
yeah, exactly.
What are you talking about?
Another example is like if you had a militia quartermaster, and you had a training day set up, then the quartermaster would be responsible for setting up if you're going to provide food, getting that available, stuff like that. So it's all supplies, all resources. If you have uniforms, all kinds of good stuff. Acts as the quartermaster, so provisions committee acts as the quartermaster for the militia, evaluates needs and means to meet those needs for equipment and other provisions necessary or needed to carry out militia duties. Oh shoot. Education committee develops tests and educational materials and programs to train militia members. Operations committee develops short and long-term operational goals for the state assembly militia, creates plans to implement projects and goals, evaluates militia readiness, acts as oversight for the militia, works with the ombudsman's office to resolve complaints related to militia, works with the peacekeeping task force to coordinate joint operations with constitutional sheriffs and with continental marshal service personnel. So that's another term to put in your lingo as you're doing this muscle memory thing. Constitutional sheriffs. You have corporate sheriffs and constitutional sheriffs. Both are needed. Assembly officers needed at the state and county level. Designations. To be an officer on the state or county level, an ASN can have no dual loyalty, no license that allow for dual loyalty. Each license evaluated as needed. Now, this is just to be an officer. This is not to be an ASN. Okay? You got to make sure there's no conflict of interest. That's all this is. ASN is a background check for most positions. And it's the same, can have no dual loyalties, no license that allow for dual loyalty. Each license evaluated as needed. Questions or comments?
Yes, this is Keith on Great.
Yeah.
Go back over them cards again, what we gotta do to them first credential cards.
Have you ordered your first credential cards to the LRO?
Yes, I got my first one. You said something we gotta have a signature now on them.
Yeah, they had the new program. The people that make their credential cards, they have the new program and have added a signature block and an expiration date to the credential card format now. So it's simply going back and ordering new credential cards. Yeah.
And
So
who we ordering through? How we do it again? I done forgot.
just do the LRO like you did the first time. Go to the
Okay, I
LRO.
yield.
Yep. And as I found out more information on that, I will put that out. It's kind of sketchy. It's kind of a gray area right now, but everybody's being directed to the LRO. You just order a credential card, and it's going to come with the new format on it. And like I said, on your signature block, make sure you use your byline and autograph it.
Hey, Justin. It's
Yeah.
Todd on Grant. So, no, we had an issue before, but I think that just had to do with the filing of the paperwork. But as far as the card, that's paid directly to the LRO, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
It's Keith again.
Yeah.
On that byline, how do you sign that?
It's just simply by colon and your signature with a copyright symbol.
All right, I yield.
N4. But that's recommended to do with your driver's license, your passport, and now the state credential card since it's going to have a signature line. Now, well, I won't go into that. That's off subject there. Any more questions or comments? Right. So state level offices, please keep this information in your files. It's not necessary to read during class session. So just go back over this in your spare time if you feel inclined. Excuse me. And all it's doing is putting a status with the title, because all this is the title. Right now, Belinda is a woman, status corrected on Kentucky, but she has stepped up for the role. The title as treasurer. I, Justin Jones, am a man living on Lincoln County, but I have stepped up for a title as Marshal at Arms, as an ASC. So all this is putting two and two together. It's telling you, okay, to be a chairman, you need to be an ASC. Be a vice chairman, ASC. Secretary, ASN. See how it's going? Militia coordinator. It's recommended to be an ASC, because then you can go outside your internet into the international jurisdiction. It's recommended to go with the Marshal at Arms the first couple of times as a quote escort unquote, and it's not an actual physical escort. What that means is if you're going to send an email to another militia coordinator or a chairman on, let's say, Ohio, it's good to include your Marshal at Arms in that, because he's going to have record of that email. He's going to be able to protect you if something gets, from one email to the next, and if something gets changed, then a good Marshal at Arms is going to keep up with that, and he's going to stick up for you. He's not going to stick up for the Ohioan. Well, he's going to stick up for what's right. Okay. General Assembly Chairman, ASC. State Recording Secretary, ASC. So just in your spare time, go through this, and this has got General Assembly positions. It's got every position within the assembly structure.
May I
And here-
just
Yes, please.
just quickly? So, like where Tom had got moved from an ASN to an ASC, and so he actually has the title of General Assembly Chairman. Wouldn't these other instances with the coordinators be changed to a chairman or no? Like
Yes.
for instance, militia. If I was an ASC, it would be militia chairman, or would it still be militia coordinator?
I would say chairman.
Okay.
There's others that would, of course, Tennessee is the one that come up with this. They would say coordinator, because that term fits more within the militia. You see, a chairman is just a title, but it fits it's more of what the chairman does as opposed to what a coordinator does. It's one and the same, but before long, once we get stood up and we get the approval of the Federation, all the coordinator roles are going to sunset because they're no longer needed. They work for the Federation. Once we set up, then they're working for the state. Right?
Right.
And just keep in mind the responsibilities of a chairman is not to, for lack of a better term, micromanage. Okay. It's to put out intent. It's to give people the research knowledge to go find. Okay. Let's say if I had guys underneath me as deputies, I would encourage them to go look at this stuff, find this out, get this in your brain, find this, so that when we come together as a committee or whatever, everybody's got a say in it, everybody's got input, and it's a team effort. And then the chairman takes that team effort, and he's a spokesman pretty much. He's the one that's going to come to the General Assembly meeting and say, "Here's what we come up with this last month, at the request of Laura on Jefferson County. Here's what we've come up with." So, and that having that chairman title, it's known from state to state that you are operating in international jurisdiction, pretty much, or you have the capability. Now, I did say all coordinators work for the Federation. That would be state coordinators, county coordinators. All right. That doesn't necessarily mean you as a militia, because you're actually working for us on the state, or the people on the state. All right. So you necessarily wouldn't be working for the Federation as holding that title as coordinator. You're actually coordinating militia functions. Okay. As opposed to a county coordinator and a state coordinator, they're taking the information that they're gathering from the Federation calls and they're putting the plan together to put out to the people and for the committees to take and say, okay, this is what we learned this week. All right. And what Anna said a coordinator was back in the day was a circuit rider. The coordinators will be the ones going from county to county, putting flyers up saying, hey, your state assembly is coming to your town. Please make yourself available. So a coordinator is a term that the Federation has come up with to be able to have somebody as a liaison from them to us, because this hasn't been done in any of our lifetimes. So it's guidance. Any more questions on that? Comments? Notice counselors at law, no attorneys, no lawyers. Signing America coordinator, ASN. Here's another page. Was that what happened there? Oh. Only 2 pages of that. I beg your pardon. All right. No pop quiz, just a question. They changed it. What are the 4 pillars? Can anybody tell me the 4 pillars? General Assembly, International Business Assembly, General Assembly, and instead of Militia Assembly, it should say State Assembly Militia. Assembly etiquette and participation agreement. Let me do a time check real quick.
8:19.
Thank you. We'll go to part 2, okay? And then we'll regroup and see where we're going to go for the next week. Assembly etiquette and participation agreement. Points of order. The Kentucky Assembly has adopted points of order for assembly meetings in order to provide guidance to the principles of conduct, honesty, and integrity expected of all participants in the assembly concerning their duty under the public law. Provides openness and accountability necessary to reinforce public confidence and stability to the way in which the men and women of the Kentucky Assembly perform their public duty to the whole. Self-governance. Our American form of government is not a democracy. We are owed a republic form of government, which requires either a unanimous vote or a 70% majority vote, 2/3 vote. This is a question on the final review, blah, blah. Key points to remember. Conscience must be free and clear of any outside influence when voting on any order or move. So, can somebody tell me how you clear your conscience and be able to make the best decision possible? It's kind of tricky wording there. It's not a loaded question. I'm not setting you up. I don't do that. Try not to. So to gain a
I
clear
don't know. I would
conscience,
say if you say what's right and what you believe in, you can make the right decision.
right. And to go and to add on to what you said, Bob, the way I do my best to make the right decision is I research and get as much knowledge on the subject as possible. I don't just fly off a cuff and make a decision based on hearsay. I try and find as much facts as possible to back up my decision in case it needs to be explained to anybody. Okay. So yes, awesome answer. Conscience must be free and clear of any outside influence when voting on any order to move. Another thing means that, no conflict of interest. The assembly is not used to gain in your business. It's not used to gain in your individual efforts. The assembly is here to restore and reconstruct our American civil government. And we are all volunteers at this time. There are 7 principles of conduct. Not just the Kentucky Assembly. Everybody in this thing is a volunteer, even the people making the credential cards. So just keep in mind, it's a kick in the butt to have to pay another $50. But just think of the people that when they come out and they're like, "Golly, we got to go back and make everybody's credential cards all over again." So just to be thankful you're not making credential cards, I guess. All right, I'm done. There are 7 principles of conduct identified by the Committee on the Standards of Public Life. Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. I would switch these 2 right here. Actually, I would take this one and put it all the way down to here. Selflessness. You got to help yourself before you can help anybody else. Integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership. Any more comments or questions on any of those? Question: what is the purpose of the points of order? And what are the 7 principles of conduct? So the purpose of the points of order to memorialize and encourage the principles of conduct. So once again, the purpose of the points of order to memorialize and encourage the principles of conduct. And then what are the 7 principles of conduct? Selflessness, integrity, objectivity, accountability, openness, honesty, and leadership.
At the end of the day, you got to look yourself in the mirror and appreciate with what you're seeing. Otherwise, you got to make a change.
That's right, buddy. I agree 100%. Since I've status corrected, I don't go to bed with any regrets. Well, I say that I'm not perfect. I try not to. It's not always welcomed on the other end. But I lay my head down at night and I like to sleep good. And it goes back to just what you said, Bob. You got to be able to look yourself in the mirror and be okay with it. So great comment. Any more comments, questions? Okay, so this is what we have to work on. I encourage everybody to take this WordPress, this PowerPoint, and if you feel led to add to this, take away, and bring it to the General Assembly, we need a participation agreement. It just is what it is. It's not a contract, it's just an agreement. And it stems directly from the Robert's rules of order. So it's not like we're just pulling it out of the air and saying, hey, we need this. It's actually established in common law handbooks and rules of order conducts. And I recommend Robert's rules of order because that's what almost every assembly is going by. That's where you say may I and your yays and nays and when you bring a move to the floor, how to properly go through that. So if a move's brought to the floor, you take the first move. You're supposed, though you automatically get seconds right off the bat. You hold that second. You take any communication and questions. That way, when it comes to the second, and you actually do a roll call on it, everybody's got a good understanding of what they are yay and naying to. Okay, so it's a move, an opportunity for discussions and questions, and then the second, and then you move into your roll call. And that's just one example, okay? But The participation agreement stems from that. The Kentucky Assembly Participation Agreement and affirmation of purpose and conduct is required to participate in the General Assembly moves, or orders. We view ourselves as a community of self-governing, we the people, as opposed to the corporate model that we have all been indoctrinated into believing is normal. So we are all self-governing men and women, and when we come together, we form a body of politic of self-governing men, a self-governing government, we the people. And here in red, think of it as it's something like the personal mission statement that you were asked to make in part one. It simply reinforces your commitment to the goals of the assembly and puts it on the record that you're willing to work towards the lawful reconstruction of our government. Questions, comments? We have a window of time to fix this mess. Consider the efforts being made here. We can only skim the surface in these 6 classes to provide a very basic foundations of knowledge to help prepare you for joining us in reconstructing our true government. We ask you to please make a commitment to the daily study, seeking out answers regarding how you will self-governing and what that requires. Quote, we the people, unquote, are the actual de jure government. Will you put in the effort to properly reconstruct our lawful government, no matter how long it takes? Will you complain or give up? Or will you focus on the bigger picture of the lawful reconstruction of our republic? What is a republic? Republic, a form of government where the sovereignty is vested in the people and is delegated to the servant government. A correction would be that we add the lowercase people to this part, because uppercase, if you're going by the legal ease and the spelling and everything, capital P doesn't have to be at the beginning of a sentence like we've all been indoctrinated to know. It can be in the middle of a sentence, and it means that it's representing a state citizen. Lowercase p would mean a state national. The only difference is one is serving, and the other one is sovereign. Democracy, a form of government where the minority has no rights and the majority doesn't need them. Mob rule. So, one good example that I've heard of the democracy is you've got, I'll maybe not say this on recording. I'll forego that. Videos available with explanations of what a republic and a democracy is. These are 2 really good ones. I looked them up. It's really good. Republic versus democracy was the real form of the U.S. government. It's really good too. Take these links, and if you got Facebook or anything, blast that crap on Facebook. Let people know what they're participating in. And you ain't gotta waste your breath on it. Questions or comments? And that's gonna conclude it for tonight. We'll go to part 2. I can't do it next week, Tuesday, because I have an important meeting I think I've got lined up to help us get off the ground. It's basically the woman that volunteered her services to help us with this, streamlining this orientation classes. She's going to help us get a link tree set up and help us add to our website. So I got that meeting next Tuesday. I really can't do anything this weekend. We could try, since we don't have no meeting next Wednesday. Well, let's try for next Saturday. Not this coming Saturday, but next Saturday. Let me escape out of this thing here. So part 2, this is conclusion of part 3. I beg your pardon. I'll go through and edit these to where it makes more sense. But this coming up will be actually part 4. What we just went through was part 3. Sorry for the confusion. But let's go for
Mm.
part. Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm
I
open to
just wanted to
suggestions.
say that I know I won't be able to make that one. Cynthia's surgery is happening on the
16th.
Friday. So
That's the
I'm gonna
16th,
be out
right?
of commission for a while.
Okay. No, that's next Tuesday you're talking about, right?
Her surgery is on the 19th.
Oh, the 19th. I beg your pardon.
Yeah.
Okay.
You said next, not this Saturday, but next Saturday, right?
Right. I'm booked up for the 13th. I'm all this weekend. I've got plans,
Okay.
and then this coming Tuesday is the meeting with Mel.
Okay.
So, and then we got the following Tuesday open before the General Assembly meeting. Let's just set it up for the 23rd, July 23rd.
Okay.
And keep in mind, everybody on the call and for the recording, you still have your militia call tomorrow. Is that right, Todd?
Yes.
Right. And then you have a General Assembly call on Sunday. So that still keeps us going as far as meetings and keeping the ball rolling on the assembly process. So tomorrow, militia, Sunday, General Assembly, Tuesday is the yeah, let's just set it up for the 23rd. We'll go through part 4 of this orientation class. And I'll go ahead and make a note of that right now. Is there anybody that wants to add to this? Anything that they through their research through the week have come up with would like to add to any of this?
I did have one question, Justin.
Yeah.
So I reviewed the other videos. You were discussing the gaining of sovereignty, and you thought that it was through the service in the military. Is that correct? If I remember you saying it correctly, it wasn't given by King. You said it was through the service through the military from the Revolution.
I was actually course corrected on that.
Okay.
When Belshazzar gained his sovereignty, he's the one that actually gave it to everybody in the Continental Army.
Because did that come originally from William the Conqueror?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. So Laura course corrected me on that last week, and I did go back and research that, and that's 100%. George Washington actually reached out to Belshazzar because he was not sovereign. It's actually said that George Washington was King George's cousin.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it was all an effort to gain land in America because the land in America was so mineral rich and untouched at the time. But you know, it's crazy, man. It's crazy how things were connected and are still connected through the bloodlines. It's just,
Well, and
it's
Washington was a Freemason.
yep. Most of all of them were. Most all of the founding fathers were Masons. But Todd, was you able to go back? I think I shared that Bobby Graves with you before this orientation class, but those 3 videos of Bobby Graves really does. That's where I went back and did the research, and he does. It's William the Conqueror is the one who issues it.
I just remember reading that through something or seeing it on one of Anna's webinars or something. And then so I was just trying to understand that better. And I thought what Laura mentioned was right, but I wasn't for sure, and I didn't want to chime in being unknowledgeable, which I couldn't at the time anyway because I was just watching the video. But anyway, just trying to understand it better.
Yep. Is there anybody that needs help or guidance on where to keep up with the recordings of Anna's videos or webinars? Because I'm telling y'all, man, I don't do this much. But this past webinar, it's like the timing is uncanny of what they're talking about because it's pretty much everything we talked about, part 1 and part 2, they talk about in a little bit more.
Well, Laura and I watched them, every one of them. So we've seen all of her videos.
So I'll put this link in the chat real quick. Y'all should be able to see my screen. But you just go to Anna's, if you don't know this already. If you do, I beg your pardon. But if you don't, you just go to annavonrice.com. You click on videos and audios. And you can scroll down and you can go every webinar for the past 5 years they've been doing it. And here recently, they've been adding some information that they talk about. The week before last, they talked about Archbishop Pagano. I learned about him through the whole propaganda Q movement. He was one of those that has kind of stuck and has proven to be actual true, when all the other patriots have been proven to be patriots. P-A-Y. So yeah, right here, if you ever want to go back and find out on his webinars, right here they all are. And I've heard it said that you can scroll down to all the way to the bottom and type in keywords like you do on Anna's search engine, and it's supposed to be able to take you to the minute mark of different webinars, but I have yet to find that. So if anybody does find that, then please share that with us. And then you got these here at the very bottom. 2019. This is when she was touring with. There you see David Strait. There you see what's his name, Anita? It's a guy that does land patents. Or she dropped off.
Ron Gibson. His
Ron
name's
Gibson.
Ron Gibson.
Yeah, Ron Gibson. But this is back in 2019. You see honest look on our faces. David Strait's talking. But anyway, things have quite changed in that realm.
That's how she looked when I asked her my question about getting, Sarah with the CF diagnosis. She rubbed her forehead like that.
Somewhere in here too, you can find the 3 jurisdictions. One where she puts her hats on and explains the different jurisdictions as far as how federal persons can still status correct because it's their birthright. So there's a 1779 there's 4 1779s, one for American federal persons, naturalized citizens, and green card recipient citizens. I thought it was here, but I can't find it. It might be on TASA website. But you'll know the video because she's in the motion of changing one hat to another. Okay, so y'all look for that video. It's a great explanation of who all can status correct. Pretty much anybody can status correct. You still have your hand up, Laura?
Yes. I just had a question because I was in a land patent meeting and they said that there was 4 constitutions and I've only heard Anna say 3. So I didn't know if maybe you knew something about that.
I've heard that too, but I'm not knowledgeable enough in that. Joe Hayes is the one that question will be best directed to. Because at our first in-person meeting, that PowerPoint, he made that distinction. There was actually 4 constitutions. So I'm sorry I can't answer that here. Let me stop the recording. Before I stop the recording, anybody else want to make a comment for the record?